Good morning, friends. Namaste and welcome. I'm Aditya speaking from Ananda Sangha, Pune, and thank you for joining us online. And also, of course, a very warm welcome to all friends and Guru Bhais in this room. Thank you for joining. Now, as you all know, that a few weeks ago we started this beautiful series called Living Discipleship, which is, on one level actually the essence of what we are doing. If somebody were to ask us, we could be from different nationality, gender, age, experience, but I think somewhere the soul reaches this point of evolution where, which I believe we should be actually, where if asked the question, who are you? What do you do? A very spontaneous answer, I think of Swamiji at this time, a spontaneous answer should come out. Oh, I am a disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. That reminds me of a, example that Devarshiji and I were traveling to Singapore a few months ago, last year actually. And we were going through the airport in Mumbai, and at the immigration, we are having some technical challenges here, but I keep going. So then what happened was, just at the immigration counter, Devarshiji remembered he forgot to bring a paper which was very essential to leave the country and also actually to come back. And this was his residence permit. And just in that moment, he thought, my goodness, what to do? And he prayed to Master. And he was actually next in line. I had just gone, so he was like just moments after me. And he went there. And friends, there are at least 25 to 30 counters for checking tourists at that time. Just 4 or 5 were open because it was early morning, around I think 8:30 a.m., maybe even before that. And when he went to the fellow, sure enough, there was a challenge and the person got up. But in the meantime, I was conversing with a fellow who just came from nowhere. And he said, how are you? I said, I'm very well, but sorry, I didn't recognize you. He said, oh, I saw you in Mumbai and such. And he went to his friend and he said, by the way, treat them both very well. They are disciples of Paramahansa Yogananda. And he didn't know our names. We were not even in our uniform. We were in casual clothes. And suddenly, and he had seen us 4 months ago on stage, which we were not talking on. We were just performing a kirtan over there. It was Jyotish and Deviji's talk. But then throughout the trip, we both were joking to each other. Oh, because we went to Singapore and a Mercedes came to pick us up. And we were driven away, I remember, in a BMW. Those were my first times in those luxurious cars. And we went to a park and a Chrysler showed up. And I said, what's happening over here? Just for hardly anything, and that is the way of Singapore, by the way. Those cars are taxis over there. And I said, this is so amazing. And we were saying, of course, this is happening because we are disciples of Paramahansa Yogananda. That is what we all are. How did we meet? We met because of that. So anyway, this series is to celebrate that. It is to deepen that understanding. As Swamiji would often say, I was traveling by air and people asked me, 2 of them who were next to me, you're in yellow, what do you do? I said, I'm going to teach meditation in Coimbatore. Acha, what kind of meditation? Whose disciple are you? I said, Swami Kriyananda. He was a disciple of Yogananda. And one lady didn't know him, the other very well knew him. And she said, who is Kriyananda? One asked. And the other said, oh, you must go and watch his online videos. He is the sweetest disciple. He's sitting there with a cup of tea in all videos, many videos. And all he says is, my master, my guru said, he used to tell us. And she said, it is so amazing. But he only lived with him 3.5 years. And the other one's like, okay, I will check him out. That is who we are. We are disciples. We are children of such a master. So let's begin this class. Today's theme is why serve? And why Seva? What is Seva? And on one level, it seems like a topic not even worthy of discussion. But on the other hand, it is totally something we should completely, you might say, get into our bones, our marrow, because Master said it is the second half or the first half, whichever you put it. He said our path is of meditation and service. What does service mean? How can it help us become deeper disciples and purer channels on this path of self-realization? So let's start with a brief chant. I have picked this chant called, what is this life flowing through my veins, my body? What is this energy, will flowing through me? It is actually ultimately, as we will realize, divine. So let's sing this. What is this life flowing through my veins? Can it be other than divine? What is this life flowing through my veins? Can it be other than divine? In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. What is this power? What is this energy flowing through my form? Can it be other than divine? What is this energy flowing through my form? Can it be other than divine? In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. What is this consciousness flowing through my brain? Can it be other than divine? What is this consciousness flowing through my brain? Can it be other than divine? In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. What is this power flowing through my will? Can it be other than divine? What is this power flowing through my will? Can it be other than divine? In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. In thy light, in thy love, in thy joy, I am one with the infinite home. Good morning once again, friends. I want to start this morning by reading a small prayer, answered prayer of Yogananda ji. This is called Demand for Quickening Activity. So many times when activity, like somebody said, don't go looking out for trouble. It'll find you. Your challenges will find you. And sometimes it happens with activity, especially in our times. Master says we live in a restless age of a restless galaxy. And but so activity also happens to find us. So I was very intrigued when Master said, help me quicken my activity further. And of course, we will today learn the attitudes, how to do it in best possible way. But let's see how this prayer was answered. Let the waves of thy power dance on the river of my activity. As thou art intelligently busy making atoms, flowers, universes, so teach me to be cheerfully busy always. Thou art ever busy, yet eternally smiling in joyous hearts. Bless me that I may wear thy unfading smile as I work in the factory of life. So, as I was thinking of this topic, this theme, and I'm sure we all find ourselves in this situation serving. Master told Swami Kriyananda ji in the brief time they were together, he said, Walter, your life will be one of intense activity and meditation. And as I was preparing for this talk, I was meditating on those words. What is intense? Somebody says, he is intense. That was intense. And imagine a long life which was intense with activity. And Swami says, I would have liked him to say, he wrote in one article, I wish he would have said, your life will be one of intense meditation and some activity. But he said, I had to remind myself, this is what was right for me. He gave me that counsel. And while I was also thinking of that, it reminded me of the story of a disciple who came to Yogananda ji as a monk. And Master was towards the end of his life, he was interpreting the scriptures, and for that he went to the seclusion of the 29 Palms retreat in California. And he took some of them over there, and Master was really engrossed at that time in making those scriptures, writing them. But he gave the monks an opportunity to be with him once in a while for a walk, for some meals. But then he thought of a project, Swami felt, that to get them close, he said, why don't you all get together and make me a swimming pool? And Swami says, we all were excited, and it was right in the backyard of his small cottage, and they thought, oh, how wonderful, we'll be working long hours and we'll be with him. And so all of them went and they got their tools and they started digging. And Swami says, actually, some of them dug so much that Master came out in the night and he says, oh my goodness, did just 2 or 3 of you do all of this? And then Swami says, then we were ourselves surprised how much we worked. He said, but we were not tired. And day by day they would work. Till one day, actually very soon, there was one fellow in the group and he said, what is all this? Didn't we come here to meditate? Didn't we come here for self-realization? What is this whole thing about making a swimming pool in the desert? And as they worked, others were trying to ignore him because they were just so joyful. And he says, I'm not part of this. And he sat down on one side. And again he would mutter something to tell people this is not the right thing and it's not in tune with what's really they should be doing. Till everybody ignored him. And at the end of the day, Swami says, the one person who was tired in that group was that fellow. And I want to read a small extract, and Swami, how he's actually sympathizing with that fellow, but also making a deeper point that what does it really have to do? This is from the New Path, Work versus Meditation chapter. The spiritual path would, one suspects, be relatively easy to understand if it involved only meditation, ecstatic visions, and a blissful expansion of consciousness. Why, one asks, must it be complicated by mundane activities like ditch digging and letter writing and cleaning up kitchens? One may sympathize on one level at least with that reluctant disciple on the day we completed the swimming pool at 29 Palms who grumbled, I didn't come here to pour cement. Many a sincere devotee too has probably wondered what pouring cement or digging ditches or writing letters or cleaning up kitchens has to do with finding God. The answer is quite simply, nothing. Not in itself anyway. Master once told the story of a man who placed a $100 bill in the collection plate at church, then was upset because God didn't answer his prayer. Laughingly, Master commented, God already was that $100 bill, whether in or out of the collection plate. Why should he care where it was placed? The realm of Maya, cosmic delusion, is like the surface of an ocean. No matter how high the waves are whipped by the storm, the overall ocean level remains the same. God doesn't need anything that we can give him. He already is everything. The one thing he wants from us, Master said, is our love. The purpose of spiritual work then is not really to do things for God, but rather to do the most important thing of all for ourselves, to purify our own hearts. No work for God is more or less important than any other. The Bhagavad Gita states that he accepts even a flower or a leaf as an offering if it is tendered with devotion. The important thing is to reach the point where all our love, all our energy flows naturally toward him. And that is the essence of service, that when you love somebody, when we get to know someone, it is like I often make this point as a doctor, that the nerves which actually go to the hands are also the nerves of which go to the heart. It's the thoracic plexus. So when your heart is happy, you either clap or you naturally say, what can I do for you? You pranam people, you touch their feet, it all happens. The hands are not placed randomly in the body over there. They have a very direct connection. And Master was making that point over there that especially nowadays, many people say, serve. No, I'm nobody's servant. India has remained that long enough. I don't, I want to be myself. Or sometimes the question comes, of course, I will serve God. But why do I have to serve other people? And Swami says, of course, there are dangers to serving people. People like to be served. He says, but remember, he says, and I'll make this point later, because nowadays also a question may rise, should we serve an organization? What does that mean? Master was not for organizations. Master said, but the point is he started some. He encouraged Swami to start some, and he said many others will actually start their own. So what does that mean? Actually, in the final analysis, an organization is nothing but family. But then if we come to service, our first thought often is that we are doing something outwardly. We are either like cleaning kitchens, we are doing this work and that. And Swami would also sometimes take the story of Martha and Mary. Martha and Mary, this is a story from the Bible, were two sisters in whose village once Christ was crossing, and he stopped there. And as it happened, Martha was very busy. She was in the kitchen. She was making food. People were coming. And Mary quietly went and sat at Christ's feet. And after a while, Martha, who was so busy, and rightly so perhaps, because people must be arriving in the house, she came out and she told Christ. And Martha, she said, what are you doing sitting over here? Christ, Jesus, tell her to come and help. And Christ said, Martha, oh Martha, you are busy doing many things, but Mary has chosen the better, the right one. That now Swami is saying that, if people are coming, should you not serve? I'm reminded of Sri Yukteswarji's story. He served the full day one day in the ashram. And Master says after a long day, they finally went to sleep. Master was with Sri Yukteswarji. And Sri Yukteswar, they were just about to drift into deep sleep when Sri Yukteswar got up. And he said, I think some more guests are arriving who could not come by the evening train. I'm going to the kitchen to make some food. Will you help me? And Master said, Sir, I don't think anybody will come at this hour. Let us go to sleep. And Sri Yukteswarji said, Mukunda, I understand you're tired. You go to sleep, but I'm going to the kitchen and making the food. And Master Sri Yukteswarji started going down. And you can imagine, Mukunda immediately jumped out of bed. He says, no, sir, I'm coming to help you. And they started chopping. And Master was still thinking, I don't know how, that nobody will come. But he, sure enough, just as the food was about to get ready, there was a knock on the door and some people came. And Master says he was very amazed how Sri Yukteswar could tune into that. But then the important thing was they served them food, they sat with them, they had some discussions. And when late at night, practically I think early morning when they were going to bed, Sri Yukteswarji said, why don't you come and sleep on my bed? Master says that was the only second time he allowed me to sleep in his own bedroom. And Master was very happy. He apologized. He said, I'm sorry, sir, for my reluctance and unwillingness to obey your orders in the beginning. And Sri Yukteswarji's reply was very simple. He said, no, that happens. That is kind of nature, human nature. And secondly, he said, but today you have overcome unwillingness and the fear of hard work. He says, fatigue will never touch you again. And then Master says, I have never known fatigue in my life. And that was a blessing. How did that blessing come? On the spiritual path, yes, Swami says, we want to meditate. It does not go without it. Meditation is where the highest service actually happens. But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that before you achieve that actionless state of samadhi, shall we say, breathlessness, service to God, you must be intensely active for me. I'll read some verses from there. I'm reminded of another story. Through stories of especially guru-disciple, we can understand this beautiful concept. Otherwise, like I said, people are confused. What is service? To whom am I subservient? Master used to call himself the servant of all. That was his attitude. He said, what is a leader? What is a person doing really? What does a father do in the family? He's really serving people. This happened between Ramana Maharshi and his most exalted disciple, Yogi Ramaya. Yogananda ji said Yogi Ramaya was so exalted, he has surpassed his guru's spiritual stature itself. And there it happened, they were sitting once in a satsang in the temple. And you will know, Ramana Maharshi was visited by hundreds and thousands of people. Now they would come, they would pranam, offer all kinds of things, flowers, food, prayers, touch his feet, garland him. Day long this would happen. He would give what is called a darshan, blessing. And one day at the evening, when they were both together after the temples were closed, Yogi Ramaya told him, he said, "Sir, I have a doubt in my heart. I have a heaviness." He said, Rama, what happened? Why? Tell me, how can I help you? He said, "Sir, I don't think I feel devotion towards you." He said, "Anymore, or something is wrong." He said, look at all these people, they're coming from every corner of the country to pay respects to you. And here I am sitting often with you. I do not feel like doing those things. I'm wondering what's wrong with me, sir. And Ramana Maharshi said, "Oh, Ramaya, what could be wrong with you? By remaining in God communion all the time, you are rendering me the highest service a disciple can give to his guru." Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful that what does God really want from us? And who is a guru? A guru is a reflection of God. A guru is, I think God sends a guru so that we can understand what is God. Otherwise, the concept itself is so vast that we can even actually reach insanity trying to comprehend what is God. But then he comes in a human form. Swami says sometimes, but then the mistake happens. We either think of them as the personality, or we think, oh no, he's not the personality, he is great. And because he is great, how could he ever need somebody like me? What could I, a little nobody, do anything for God or Guru? And Swami says, there we go again. Our reason misguides us. What does an avatar mean? Swami says, because Krishna says, if I were to stop acting, people would follow that too. He says, but like I read in Master's poem, God is never inactive. Yes, he goes through what is called a day of Brahma, the scriptures say, where everything today, right now you might say, we are in the day of Brahma. Everything is in manifestation. At the night of Brahma, it is withdrawn. But he's going through these, and we also go through day and night, outward and inner activity, life and death. So it is all reflected in our lives too. But Master said that, how do we know God is active? Many people may say, I don't believe in God. So we should study the life of a saint, especially the life of an avatar. And for us, our line of masters, gurus are the avatars. What was their life like? Let's study one or two stories from each of the masters' life. An avatar, the word itself means descent of divinity. Swami says that descent, yes, it comes in the body. Right now, actually, it will be good to meditate on the life and mission of Christ. Why did God descend? Why did that happen? Why does it happen time and again? Whenever virtue declines, as the Gita says, God reincarnates in the form of an avatar. What is really descending, and how can we help with that descent? Is a birth enough? In Christianity, people say, oh, it was enough. God came. He was so powerful. He took all our sins. Well, then why are we not in ecstasy all the time? Why are we not happy? Perhaps there is something we have to do also. So Master said, on the spiritual path, God does 50% of the unseen work. 25% in this life. I think even before we become a disciple, a lot of that, practically all of it, is being done by our guru. And then once we come on the path, once we are conscious of their presence, of how things work, what is the spiritual world and law, then 25% of that we have to do. And that 25% means we have to put our body, mind, energy, strength, heart, discrimination, attitude, all to that end, that this is what is trying to happen. Master says, try to tune into the quality of one of the avatars. Allow it to enter your brain. He said this is in meditation. Then your spine, see that invigorate your body. Visualize yourself giving it an outward expression, if that is right for you, which I think is for most of us, all of us. We need to give it an outward expression till we reach that point. Like Sri Yukteswarji told Master, after he came out of Samadhi, he gently was standing there, giving him time to come out of Samadhi, but he was standing there with a broom. And as Master reeled from that infinite consciousness into that gentle little body of a disciple, his guru was there. He says, come, let us clean the ashram. And Master said he was teaching me that how to bring that infinite consciousness into this world. Friends, what is lacking is, in this world, those vibrations do not exist, or are very rare, I should say. But in that realm, our universe is already floating. So we need to fulfill the mission of an avatar by meditating, inviting, asking. Swami was once brought to tears in one of his visits to a Divine Mother shrine in the Europe. I think it was perhaps Portugal. He said he was especially touched by the prayer of one of the children who was given a vision of Divine Mother. And when Swami was just, I think, in tuning into them and asking them what touched them, or their reading, one of them said, not how he or she was blessed by that. He said, "Oh, I love praying for God." And Swami says, what a concept. Praying for God. Because He who created so many galaxies, so many stars with clockwork precision, the avatars, what is barring from them? Sometimes people ask, why can't I get Kriya? Gandhiji was given it on second day. Well, I gently, lovingly, calmly have replied twice, thrice I've been asked that question. The person who gave that initiation was Yogananda ji. He knew certainly what he was doing. The receiver was Mahatma Gandhi. Master said when Gandhi's last hours came, he knew he was going to leave the body. And what did he tell his assistants? He said, "Bring me the remaining letters. Time is less." He didn't think of himself. When Master's last few moments came, what did he say? What is the mark of a devotee whose attunement with God is so deep? He could say, "Let me merge in Him." What do they say? Master was telling people, I think hours or a day prior to his passing, he was in the hotel, the banquet room was down where he had to go. He told a few people, "Wish me luck, tomorrow is a big day." And many said, "Of course, tomorrow is a big event." It was in commemoration of the Indian ambassador after freedom. The first ambassador was visiting. But Master then told one devotee, he said, "I don't want to go down." He said, "But I must." They say he was frightened like a child. He said, "No, I don't want to go down." Well, he said, "No, but I will. Wish me luck." And there he went, serving. Like he said, "I want to die with my boots on." So when we think of God, when we think of the masters, when we think of our path, it may actually be too much self-involvement on some level to say we are so small, what can I do? I once asked Swamiji this question because it was written in the book Swami Kiranand as we have known him by Asha ji. The statement was, God does not, many of God's plans do not come to fruit of day, the light of day, because of the lack of willing instruments. And I was totally shaken when I heard that. I said, no, God is absolute. He can change minds, plant a thought, do this, do that. His work. It's like once I was buying paneer for myself after my gym workout. And it was a line. And suddenly somebody broke the line and he said, "Paneer and eggs." And he got it. And I thought, who was that? And because I knew the seller, I said, "Who is that person?" This was in the army. He says, he was the servant of the general officer commanding. That, you know, he was the head boss. So when such a person comes, he gets the paneer first. So I thought, well, how can God's work not get done because of the lack of willing instruments? He could create willing instruments, but he doesn't do that. So I asked Swamiji, "Sir, is that true?" He said, "Oh yes, God has many, many plans. But like they say, the harvest is plenty, but the workers, laborers are few." Now, we don't really have to labor for God like we read. We have to love Him. We have to try to understand what it is. And once we understand what it is, He may just tell us, "Hey, sit under a tree, you have to do nothing." But we have to develop our understanding. Like Swami says, why? Why can't it be simple? But that is how it is. I remember in my own earlier years, I confused totally meditation, inwardness and outwardness. Totally. I'll give you an example. I was very new. And actually, I was remembering that story because Narayani was there at this lunch that happened. And some devotees were coming to the ashram for the first time. So we took them out and we said, okay, let's go. And in Pirangud, there was actually, and maybe still is, only one restaurant which has a pool. And so we all went and people said, "Poolside restaurant, wow." And so we sat and we were feeding them, telling them of the bigger plan. See, the drive between Pune and the ashram can be long, so we took a break. Now, as it happened, we sat for the lunch and I closed my eyes and I started meditating on the dining table. And I knew in my heart I felt actually. I said, this is not seeming right, but no, maybe it is right. Meditation is the highest service. And suddenly Naryani got up and she came from the other side and she whispered in my ear, brother, I think you should talk to these people. I said, of course. It was like a resounding that, what are you doing, for heaven's sake? Another time, but I think, got the lesson, but we learn it again. This was Jyotish and Deviji were coming, I think for the first, maybe the second time to the ashram. And many devotees were coming. A lot of them came from Mumbai. But this is how we learn. And God helps us develop our discrimination. I will go into the benefits of service. There are many, many levels we have to develop. That is how God wants us. Actually, what is inside of you and me? God. Swami used to say, I see God in everybody. He said, but the trouble is, he's sleeping. And he said, my job is to shake him up. You might say Swami was an awakened brother or father. He's like, wake up. The bus is about to leave. Get up, go to school. This is not your home. And similarly, I remember that how my own discrimination and faith was deepened in this example. We were all looking forward to that satsang. I personally had helped with the construction of the temporary temple over there. And I said, oh, finally, after these weeks of calling, and my phone was on the Sangha number and this and that, I said, we will sit down and receive. And what happened in the morning? Early morning, I got a call. Oh, somebody was coming late at night and they ran into a rock on the dirt road and their car engine has practically frozen. It's not starting. And the devotee is saying, this is a very expensive car. Can we fix it? Now, out in the ashram, there's no mechanic for even flat tires at that time was available. So I said, okay, let me see. Now, it was a big issue, lakhs and lakhs of rupees. And above all, it was service. It was like, oh my goodness, you're coming for the first time and you break your car in such a bad way. So what I do? I said, I know a mechanic. I know the service stations where Swami and other cars used to go. I called them and I took the car. I drove it. It was somehow moving. I drove it and I sat there and I thought it would be a small problem. They said, oh sir, the whole thing is frozen. Yeah, it was not known earlier because I drove it. He says, practically frozen. It won't reach Mumbai. It has to be towed. We will take 6 hours to fix it. And I was looking at the watch and I said, there goes my satsang. It had already started going because when they were starting the showroom, the satsang was starting there. And I kind of was sad and all by myself. But I said, no, this is all good. All is God. And after the satsang, as we were fixing, I was updating people. They were not answering calls at that time. And one person, devotee asked me, hey, where are you? I said, oh, I was helping in this showroom. And they're like, oh, you missed this beautiful satsang. I said, what was the topic? What did they talk about? They said, they spoke about complete self-forgetfulness in service. And I felt very happy. I said, oh, I was pushed in that direction. Now I will never forget that. I could have enjoyed that discourse. But what was the discourse for? What is the scripture for? What is the life of an avatar for? Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not the things that I say? Scripture, satsang, discipleship is a call to action. Now I want to talk about a few other things over here and some stories. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits that might come through acting now that we've understood the attitude and what really happens, Swami would say, in service. Now, if we just work for the sake of work, it can tire us out. It can burn us up actually because you don't understand who you're serving, what's really happening, and then when challenges and other things come, it can get very difficult for us. But Swami says you're actually serving yourself. How? Let's think of a situation where you're really actually just serving yourself. I should take care of myself, my time, my money, my security, perhaps my life, likes and dislikes. I like this, I don't like this. When we live in that world long enough, friends, we reach a point, because that is not how we are made, that is not our final destiny. We reach a point, Swami says, of such utter desolation and contraction that our very capacity to feel, what to speak of devotion, to feel how others are feeling is lost. Now that's some people may say, why do I need to feel? There are 7 billion people. How many What? Why? The life is short. No, I don't want to think about that. No, you don't have to go around touching people's feet or hugging them and carrying weights for them and what not. What you really need to understand is, and this is the point I want to make of the caste system in India, which again many young people need to understand. I think the whole world needs to understand this concept very, very much. There was a time when I wrote the caste system on my wall, because when I got up, what caste was I belonging to? This was in the monastery in my ashram, in the ashram where we lived. What is my caste? What is our caste? People say, like for example, I was born in a Kshatriya caste. And people continue to define you like that, even on important paperwork sometimes. But caste system was simply, you might say, a directional sheet that God and gurus gave us in the high ages to understand where you are for your own happiness. It is certainly not hereditary. For example, when we cannot help ourselves, we are in the Shudra consciousness. You're in the bed, you don't want to go out, you lock the door, you switch off the phone, you're like, no one loves me, no one understands me, I have no friends. No, life is unfair. And at that time, we are behaving childishly, but Swami says, and it has its magnetism, so you like to stay there. And he says, well, you just established yourself in Shudra consciousness. Now, are you happy? Not at all. Shudra is actually never happy. Never. You may think, he must be, he has nothing to do. But Krishna says, that's not how I made you. You can't find happiness that way. So then what do? We move a step forward and we say, okay, I'm going to do something. This will bring me money, security, name, fame, praise. And I'll do something because I'll get something. I'll get all these things back. And that's Vaishya consciousness. It's much better. There's a good exchange. People praise you. They thank you. You come, you say, okay, after a while, you say, this is not really St. Francis. I always think of him in these examples, is this particular example, because when he was going through this stage, there came a point where he was not really happy. He had money, he had friends, they would praise him because he would throw parties for them. But there came a point, says the biography, that he was to be found at the end, lagging in the end of the group, not in the front as it used to be, because he was like, what is life? I'm not happy. And then he learned the joy of helping others, giving without return. Because friends, at that point, the heart opens up. Earlier you're thinking of myself, like Mahatma Gandhi said, thinking of the self. He says, lesser self and the larger self. He says, both are infinitely involving. You can continue to think of myself. Or he says, you forget yourself. And you're thinking like Jayaji was saying last time, and I'm picking it up from there, that can we forget the I? Once we know of a reality as God, we must understand. And that brings us into the Brahman consciousness, where you say, my goodness, if I am a product of something so great. Now, at the Kshatriya consciousness, somewhere I think, when we are serving, you might say outwardly, when we are willing to dedicate our lives, I will give you my unconditional obedience and service, Master. Lahari Mahashaya ji, Sri Yukteswar ji, those promises were made by our gurus and Swami ji. When we say that to a personification, then Swami says, Sri Yukteswar ji explains, in that moment, he says, two things happen. He says, when you see such a magnetism personified in a person and you offer yourself to them, you develop what is known as Shraddha. Your heart opens. You see light and you offer yourself. He says, after Shraddha develops, which we had discussed earlier, moral strength, courage, and power comes. With that power, a Kshatriya walks ahead, and you can think of any noble souls who are willing to give up their lives for their king, for the kingdom, for people. Master says Gandhi's great contribution was that he offered his own personal ambition in the stream of the country's interest. I found that so sweet that how does it matter? At some point, I think we will all reach that point where we ask the question, my Lord, if I really have lived in the past many, many times, how does it matter if I apply my likes and dislikes? Once again, actually, why should I? Let me for once and all ask you, what is your will? To do the Guru's will is the highest form of attunement, is, you might say, the highest service we can do. There are many ways to define service. Swamiji once said the highest service is to feel the joyful presence of the Guru in your heart always. And once you have that, you could keep doing anything. It is not so much the details. People sometimes ask, what should I do? But let me first finish the Brahman consciousness. Once we realize that, truly, and through Shankhya, because Shankhya also talks of the caste system and the 3 gunas, once we reach that point where we say, okay, this is what was trying to happen with my life, Swami says, you cannot help but take the leap. Krishna says, ultimately it is inevitable. That will be such a sweet point of discipleship to discover that God was closing down on us, cornering us, and in the end, it's like there's the cliff of bliss. It's the cliff of life. There is the valley of bliss, and God is standing on this side. What do? You either go run into His arms, or you dive back into the joy that He's offering. So that is the Brahman consciousness. Now, I want to share a little bit about, like I was saying, forgot the point here. So, one more. Yeah, people sometimes ask the question, and this was with Master's case, Swami's case, our own lives, and many, if some of you are teachers and Guru Bhais who counsel others, many times people will say, sir, what should I do? With my life is actually a better question, but if somebody says, what should I do on Monday morning? That is a very difficult question to answer, or Tuesday for that matter, because sometimes we are looking for specifics. Isn't that so? What should I eat? What will make me better? What does God want from me this year, this moment? Now, it's very hard. Swami says even Master would not come to those specifics. He would give people a direction. What does it mean? Is it non-specific by any means to go in a certain direction? No, because ultimately what will you find when you're going in that direction? You will find yourself one-on-one at that cliff. So it is not really without direction, but what is the direction? Why do we need a directional growth? Now, this is a deeper subject. Just for our understanding, and I'm sharing this from Swami's Essence of Bhagavad Gita, Swami says our action is controlled by 5 things, very rarely noticeable by ourselves. He says, first, our body. The kind of body you have, gender perhaps. How is the body feeling? Based on that, we say, oh, I'm not feeling so well, I'll do this and such. Second, he says, ego. If the ego is contracted, expanded, to what degree? The action depends on that. The quality of action also. Third, he says, the senses. What are the senses telling you? How much control do they have on us? You might also club feelings over there. Yeah? Then we say, okay, I'm under a sway. Then he says, but as if this was all not enough, the most important, he says, which is controlling us, is our karma, our destiny, parabdha karma, where we are coming from, the past. And he says, little does man realize how much he is a puppet of his past, even when he sits down to eat breakfast. Now, when such a thing is happening, when we are dictated by so many things, likes and dislikes, what is right action? What is wrong action? Wrong action is that which takes our happiness away. That's why service is never a pain. Service is joy. Right action is that which brings inner freedom, overcoming of fears, overcoming of all those tendencies. So when you see the spectrum of how service can be offered, it is only natural to say, my Lord, I'm going to take the directional approach of going one by one through life with certain attitudes, and then I will find myself getting ever more free in myself. Now, Master made a very interesting point that meditation helps your service and service helps your meditation. How is that important? How is that related, by the way? When we meditate, friends, especially let's say when we do Hong Sau, when we watch the breath, when we calm the breath, observe the breath, it brings a certain peace to us. It brings non-attachment to the body. When we are non-attached to the body, to our emotions, thoughts, ego, our consciousness expands and we naturally want to give it an outward expression. No wonder spiritual groups worldwide are associated with some of the other charitable work. It has to be because you have just found a deep release and you would like to expand yourself. It is the nature of joy to want to expand and share itself. On the other hand, when we serve, Master says it is very good to develop certain qualities like you might say humility or willingness. Develop willpower. Willpower is needed for meditation. Energy is very much needed for meditation. Greater the will, greater is the flow of energy. Greater is the flow of energy, greater is the magnetism, greater is the devotion. Contentment. Swami says it does not fall on your lap. You have to affirm it in every test. Affirmation takes tapasya. These are the yamas and niyamas, which we discussed for moral courage as part of discipleship. But as we keep moving in that direction, we realize that, oh, this is what is helping me. And this is how I'm supposed to take a directional movement. Now, I also want to make the point of Nishkam Karma because many times Krishna has mentioned this, that do Nishkam Karma, do your highest duty, fulfill your dharma. It is better to fail in your own dharma rather than succeed in someone else's. We live in a world where we see people successful perhaps, and maybe they are successful the way they defined it. Is it successful for you? Is a very important. What is our duty, friends? Being disciples, what is our duty? Let's remind ourselves to give up the ego. Swami says that's the first step. I think that is also the last step because after that, what would be left? But why not have one simple teaching that the first step could be also the last? Yes, but what is giving up the ego? Patanjali said, Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. The state of yoga is inside you and me already. All we have to do is calm the chitta. When the chitta is calmed, what does the chitta say? We have to train it, Swami says, to not think of ourselves. Master said, any act of goodness in this world of duality requires painstaking deliberation. That intense thought, energy, desire to finally then reach those stages where I'm remembering Swami Kirananda. He wrote in one of his articles, he says, whenever the question arose of salvation or service, he says, I have always chosen service. And he says, because my Guru told me to do that. And that is again doing the Guru's will, he says. And later he said, I came to realize that the difference was only in my mind. He says, years later I discovered the difference was only in my mind. But how did he discover it? It has to be a purification of our tendencies. And that is how we are. That is how actually God made us. We are moving in the evolutionary scale. And Master once defined a saint. He said, a saint should have the firmness of a rock, gentleness of a plant, vitality of an animal, and the finer feelings of a human being. He says, that is a saint for you. And so many times we have one image or the other. So as we are moving, as we think of Nishkam Karma, Swami made a very beautiful, now of course by no means are these things easy. But that's why I'm saying it's a directional approach. That's why we need to support each other, carry ourselves. Krishna says, he addresses these questions. He said, devotees often ask, how did actually the Bhagavad Gita begin? It began by Arjuna bending his bow, his spine and saying, I won't do this. I can't. Why do I have to? And he says, then the joy of the discovery of what God has created for us awaits us. And when we finally reach there, I'm remembering Swami's lines. He would say, now it is very hard for me to say where Kriyananda ends and Yogananda begins. What I was yesterday thinking, I said, what that state must be. What must it be to be perhaps like a river joining the ocean, where sometimes we can even see the edge of the waters. That you have for such a long time known yourself as this boy, girl, man, bound, fearful, limited, alone perhaps, alone because we were not expanding our consciousness to understand that the universe can support me. We are actually but one cell, the body, if it has to be spoken like that, in the organism called the universe. Center everywhere, circumference nowhere. That big, that is how big our real body is. And all we have to do is direct You might say, actually, our brain is the nucleus of this cell, and we are directing how this cell should eat, interact, operate, move, and when death comes, merge back into the body as if it never existed. So when we talk of Nishkam Karma, and I'll close with this, and please be ready with some question answers. And also, I don't know if questions can come online. There's a typing system here, but it'll be nice to have some. That Swami says, what is Nishkam Karma in the final analysis? He says, often we share attitudes, we learn meditation, we learn Seva, we do many great acts. But one may ask the question, I hope after doing all of this, God will come to me. And somebody may rightly actually even reply, certainly. But Swami says, in that certainly, in that reply is implied that you have still not merged your desires, your little self, which is, I think, to say what else can happen except complete dissolving. So why even ask that question? Jai Guru. Jai Guru. So now, friends, let's have some questions. I'm sure there are many points I have missed, but maybe the questions will help. And there were so many stories on this beautiful topic. Yes, Akhtar.
So, I would like to start with congratulating you on having such a understanding and to achieve this level that you can verbalize all of this. And at each point of time, I was thinking, keep coming up with questions, and you were answering them at every step. So all of the steps were actually covered. Still, it's like a deliberate question.
Maybe the last topic brought a question.
Yeah, I am like forcing myself. So this is all scientific, and yoga is science, right? And kriya is science, and we see that these many kriyas we do and we just liberate ourselves. So accordingly, our karmas are also in numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are serving and something bad happens to us, we should count them as their own karmas.
Of course, everything. Reach the divine.
Scientifically, can we think like this? Okay, I have these many number of karmas, and I have to deal with this. I get past.
So that's the question?
Yes, I'm asking you. So can we think like this?
Yes, karma is limited, but I would not get into the act specifically of, let's say, counting or telling myself every day that this was my karma. It's enough to know inwardly that what else could it be? And see, what is karma? Reaction is karma. Whenever we react to life, that is karma. And Patanjali says, how do you overcome karma? He says, by calm acceptance. Swami says that all suffering of mankind arises from the simple thought of wishing things other than what they are, not accepting things. So if once we understand the spiritual path, see, true yoga practice, or that's why Patanjali said, I don't know if I repeated the question. The question was that it got recorded. That Patanjali said that, everything is our karma. But by calm acceptance, we can overcome it. So yeah, why don't think of counting it and such. Like Sri Yukteswarji told Master, he said, when it's time for you to move to a higher plane or something of that, he said, I won't fail to remind you. Which is to say that we will feel an inner freedom, friends. That is what I was saying. Master says, efforts end in ease. So the end of the spiritual path is a very blissful realization, because in the end, what brings us to God? Not our efforts. That is again against Nishkam Karma. It is the grace. Swami says, again we may think, I did it. He says that I is what has to be dissolved. It may be a very strong thing, and you slowly work through. It's like from an unhealthy ego, we move to a healthy, and only then it is possible to say, what a limitation this is. I would like to renounce this into the hands of God and Guru. Okay? But karma is limited, and our tools and our capacity to overcome this is unlimited. Any other questions? Yes, Premdas. We have 5 more minutes. We started much later, and I'm thinking of some examples here in stories. Yeah, tell me.
So, for example, while serving, you keep going, but sometimes you still break down. Like, for example, the inspiration stops flowing, then you start serving, but there's no joy sometimes. So, what keeps you going? I'm just asking.
Yeah, that is not a good. I think we will learn that again and again. Swami used to say, inner peace is my bottom line. What is inner peace? How joy? Let's come to joy, because that is, I think, the fire that burns the coal inside of us to serve. Once we lose that, then actually it's time to take a break, rethink, and see, as much as we are trying to renounce everything, it is good to keep in mind that we respect the body, we respect the mind, we respect what we have been given, because these are, the Gita says, instruments through which we can serve, and also to actually realize that can we really finally make a difference in this world or universe? No, as long as that thought of I is there. That's why I made that point. If you think of examples, devotees, saints who really served mankind, let's think of Saint Francis. He was soaked in God. Totally. And he would be in such communion that it required Christ, or sometimes Christ's direct message, to say, no, you go out and share. Saint Teresa of Avila, she once was so elderly, but God, we cannot put him in a box. He will sometimes make you, Swami says that you will know, like once there was a program and people didn't turn up for that. Very few people came, and Swami was wondering what happened. And when he looked into the efforts that went, and he says, we could have done much better. And somebody said, sir, maybe it was Divine Mother's will that only a few people come. And Swami says, please don't bring Divine Mother here. That if she wants, first he says, it's like much more needs to be done before we can presume what Divine Mother wanted. Saint Teresa of Avila, Swami would again and again share the story where she was serving Christ. She was old. Actually, I read she was even carrying a cancer in her intestines at that time. And Christ threw her in the cold water. But then she found herself dry on the other side. And for a moment, she was like, what was that, sir? And she was going from one monastery to the other at night to serve. And Christ was standing there, and he looked at her. He says, sister, he said, oh, don't feel too bad, Teresa. This is how I treat all my friends. And she said, my Lord, that is why you have so few. Another time she was in a city in Spain, I was reading, where she was serving, and she was so tired, she sat down in the center of the city and she prayed to Christ, with whom she would have these visions and communications. She said, Lord, thou art the inspiration behind my life. Thou art the creator of everything. Why do you want an old lady like me to go from home to inspire people? Why? When you can do it perfectly. And he replied immediately. He said, oh, just to see your will in everything you do, daughter. That it is a Leela. We find ourselves in this situation. What are our options? Is there a door? Please tell me. Is there a door you can run away from? Like a devotee of Anand Mohima said, one day she was scolding her and giving her some work, and she said, I'll run away from this place. I'll run away. And Divine Mother, Ananda Mohima looked at her. She said, to where? Where will you go? Where can you run away from me? So it is a beautiful, that's why we start our prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, God, Guru, they are our closest friends. It's like I often think of a doctor and a child who has a toothache and his jaw is swollen. And you say, oh, we have to do a small injection and surgery. And he starts running all over the hospital. No. Now, what would a good doctor do? He would run after him. I've done that many times. Catch him, hold him, pin him down like those frogs we do on dissection table. And after 3 seconds, Swami says, pain, we have made it a reality. Pain, emotional, spiritual. He said, we have to overcome it. It's not your true reality. He says, he used to give the example of children. He said, children, when they fall down, he says, they immediately look up at their parents as if asking the question, should I cry? And he said, then if the parents are worried, then they start crying and howling. And if the parents say, get up, come on, go. They're like, okay. It's like that. And we've just become conditioned to cry or complain. And I'm thinking of Master. Master told Swami, you'll have to serve all your life. And but Master told him, he said, but you won't be able to serve if you have moods. So one day, Master came out of his room and he was walking down the corridor. Swamiji was standing there. Master looked at him and he says, how are you, Walter? And Swami says, well, sir. And Master patted him on the shoulder. He said, very good, very good. And he just went ahead. Swami said he would not give us the freedom, you might say, to even think we were not well. If the body was not well, like you asked, say, I would like to rest. I'll come back in a few hours. But serve with that inner joy and presence. And to that presence, in others also, we are serving to that presence. Swami would say, once in a while, you have to be firm, you have to hiss, as he used to say, lest somebody make you a doormat. He said, but understand, you're really serving God in them. So loving God. See, like this is how we started, and let's end with this. God does not need our works or anything material, anything. What He needs is our love. When the love is given, when the heart over here is united to Him, then service is a fruit of that. That is Karma Yoga. That is what we are all learning, and in the direction we are moving. From karma to yoga. Okay, thank you, friends.